I'm gonna beat you into the living death.
Welcome back to Yelling About Mixed Martial Arts, the show where I yell about mixed martial arts. Noche UFC was a celebration of Mexico's independence from Spain and the UFC's independence from non-globular superstructures. Also known as UFC 306, the show was historic as the first ever sporting event held inside of the LED-encrusted Fushigi ball known as Sphere in Las Vegas, and by all accounts, it was one hell of a spectacle to behold. I, of course, ingested a number of rare earth minerals bestowed upon me by an ancient Matawahakan shaman prior to the event, so perhaps your mileage may have varied. From what I understand, some people would have preferred if the event was held inside of a PF Chang's. All of the stops were removed at the Sphere to make the event unlike any UFC card before it. On top of the feast for the eyes and the visual presentation on the inner screens, there were drones flying dangerously close to people's heads, custom fight kits, and custom round number cards held by a cadre of Mexican ring girls with runway model attitude, some of which were dressed like robotic peacocks. Never before have I contemplated sticking my dick inside C-3PO. God damn it, I guess we really are living in the future. As impressive as the display inside of the Sphere was, the one thing that it did not contain was competitive title fights. Valentina Shevchenko laid on top of Alexa Grasso for 25 minutes, which plays out a lot differently in my mind than it did inside of the octagon, and Merab Dvalishvili ran through Sean O'Malley when he wasn't busy yelling at Sean's coach Tim Welsh, or getting yelled at by Herb Dean, or bizarrely kissing Sean O'Malley's back, or nearly getting himself knocked out because there's not much going on between his ears and under his popka. Regardless, the cardio machine was all gas, no brakes throughout all 5 rounds, unless of course you count the breaking of Sean O'Malley's spirit, which looked entirely destroyed about 30 seconds into the fight. Some people seem to be clinging to the copium hard in their attempts to find a justification for giving Sean a round or two in this fight, but make no mistake, there is no round to be had for Sean in this clear 50-45 for Merab. Sorry, O'Malley boosters, sometimes that's just how the rainbow cookie crumbles. As much of a shoo-in as he would be in hindsight, Merab really went out of his way to keep us betting folk guessing in the lead up to this fight. First, there was the decent-sized cut above his eye that he got in training, which he decided to both post on social media like a dummy, and then cut the stitches out of himself, also posting a video of that on social media, also like a fucking dummy. Then there was the video of him drinking in the bar only a week or so before the fight, and the possible staph infection he contracted, which could have happened to anyone, but it's Merab we're talking about here, so there's probably a dumbass explanation for that too. As much as I like Dvalishvili, it would appear to me that he might be just a tad bit of a fucking idiot. On Sean's side of the equation, he seems to be handling the loss about as well as one might expect of him when all of his personality traits are considered. Much like Ronda Rousey before him, he slunk his way out of the cage with no post-fight interview or press appearance, and has returned to his happy place on Instagram, claiming that he won 3 rounds of the fight.
Just rewatched the fight. I won round 1, 3, and 5. Fuck you, Merab. You're still a bitch. I'm the champ and still undefeated, defending my belt in June or July against Umar Nurmagomedov in Las Vegas. I'm the champ and still round 1, 3, and 5. You don't believe me? Go rewatch it for yourself. I have Merab running like a bitch in round 5.
Lol. Time will tell how much of his aura remains amongst the 13-year-old epic meme lords who rode heavily with O'Malley prior to UFC 306, as I'd suspect that much of it has been depleted within the MMA fandom. I'd also wager that Sugar Sean O'Malley's sock sales may have plummeted to an all-time low. Other noteworthy performances on the Noche card included a less than impressive victory for the 19-year-old Raul Rosas Jr., after which he induced eye rolls by still asking for 50 cheese. Chiwiwidi's nuts on that one. Huge underdog Ketlin Sosa would knock down and choke out Yasmin Hagari after the 2 traded kicks to the Beaver, and the Chilean Ignacio Bahamondes would get a performance bonus with his knockout of Manuel Torres. Irene Aldana would be defeated after enduring one of the worst cuts this sport has ever seen, proving that she's one of the toughest women on the face of the planet, a circumstance which was absolutely a failure on the part of the Nevada State Athletic Commission. That fight should have been stopped. Daniel Zellhuber and Esteban Ribovics would put on a spirited striking exchange, the third round of which was legendary indeed. Of course, what recap of greatness would be complete without mentioning Diego Lopez, who finally got his chance to style on Brian Ortega, which he did from the very first punch of their fight. Brian looked unable to recover from the initial shots which dropped him in the first round, yet remarkably, he still somehow managed to zombie mode his way to a decision. The man's chin is still incredible, the rest of him looked significantly less so. In other news, Michael Chandler has finally realized that waiting around in the land of make-believe for a fight with Conor McGregor is in fact a fool's errand. Guess you couldn't believe, achieve that into existence, but congratulations anyway, Mike. It only took you the better part of 2 years to figure out what everyone's been telling you for the better part of 2 fucking years. Break out the noisemakers for Chandler vs. Charles Oliveira 2, scheduled for November of this year. Oh, how hilarious it will be if Charlie Olives decides not to show up to that. Also in the news, former UFC fighter Kevin Lee is now booked for 2 fights outside of the organization. The man who essentially talked his way out of a UFC contract wasn't able to beg himself back into one, offering to fight on the Contender Series to prove his value to the promotion. The obvious question, where does Kevin Lee fit into all of this, now has an answer, and that answer is game-bred bare-knuckle MMA and Lights Out Championship in Wayne, Michigan. Perhaps instead of begging Dana for a job once again, he should be begging his brother to let him do hamburger reviews with him. It'd probably be a more successful venture for the Motown Motormouth. For yelling about mixed martial arts, this is Thinker St. James reminding you that if you care this much about MMA, you too are a fucking moron. Viva Mexico! Also from Noche UFC, resident combat sports pest Jake Paul went to the show in a disguise, thinking that he was banned from attending UFC events. Apparently, Dana says he is not. That wasn't the only costume change of the evening, considering Diego Lopez whipped Brian Ortega's ass for 3 rounds, put on a fresh shirt, and went right back out to corner Alexa Grasso in the very next fight on the card. God willing, this will be the only time I'll ever be mentioning Diego Lopez and Jake Paul in the same breath.